It changes shape and form as we are a living being, continuously developing and modifying our personality and identity. Ayan. So, queer theory, gender is fluid. These stars came out as not straight. Some of them are bisexuals, others are queer, then pansexuals, and then gays, lesbians. But what is common among these stars is that they are human beings. Tao naman sila. And they are great at what they do. Then their genders are their businesses, and we should not bother. I mean, why would we? Why should we? Do they owe us that? They are happy and good people naman. So what is queer theory suggesting? Queer theory focuses on the constructedness of gendered and sexual identities and categorizations. Sinasabi ng queer theory that genders are social constructs, nilikha sila ng society. They are created by social expectations and gender performance. Let's proceed. Heterosexuality and homosexuality are binary social constructs with importance only in certain historical moments rather than descriptors of any sexual types. Sinasabi ng queer theory na ang gusto malaman at aralin ng mga queer theorists ay yung kapangyarihan na nagdidikta, nagahango at naguuri sa mga tao base sa kanilang sexual na pagpili at pagkilos. This theory also destabilizes and denaturalizes genders, masculine, feminine, and biological sex, male-female, questioning the assumed connectivity between sex and gender kasi wala naman masyado, or the legitimacy of presumed scientific classification. Sinasabi ng queer theory na gender is fluid, tubig ito. It takes a lot of shapes, and therefore, we must not be classified kasi wala namang hubog ang gender. Yon. So, hindi tayo dapat maklasify. Pero, why do we need to be classified into binary genders? Why does our society classify us? The answer is that classification and identification put us in order under the control of patriarchy. Ayan, narinig niyo naman yung word. For example, babae ka, magiging nanay ka, mag-aalaga ka ng anak. Another example, lalaki ka, kumayod ka, maghanap buhay ka. This is how patriarchy places us in order by classifying us into genders. And what happens to those who don't fall into these heteronormative genders? The queers. What happens to them? In queer theory, here are the areas to look at it. Yung mga bagay na dapat silipin kapag inaaral natin yung teorya na to. Of course, the big idea here is heteronormativity. Again, the big idea is heteronormativity. Mapapansin natin na this word is comprised of two smaller words, the hetero and then the normal. So ano nga ba to? Heteronormativity tells that there are only two genders, man and woman. This is wrong already. Mali agad yung claim ng heteronormativity because, remember, sabi ko kanina sa simula ng ating discussion, sex is different from gender. Dalawa lang yung sexes, pero marami yung genders kasi nga, gender is external, is nurture. But let's continue with the discussion of heteronormativity. Heteronormativity dictates that one must be a straight man or a straight woman to fit in the society, and that being straight is the default gender. You notice that gay people are expected to come out. Pero you don't see any straight people forced to come out as straight. Ito yung pinakita sa movie na ito. I don't remember the title of the movie, pero yun yung isang argument or point ng movie. This only points out that being straight is a default gender as suggested by the heteronormative perspective. But, gamit ang queer theory, it should not be, hindi dapat. Bakit kailangan maging default yun? The same says that being not straight is a wrongful deviation, maling-mali. Makasalanan daw, and therefore punishable, and the punishment is well-deserved. In our society, notice the dehumanizing prejudices of people towards the members of LGBTQIA+. Even when we call or dub it as a third gender, is a prejudice because we are promoting heteronormative hierarchy where the male gender is superior and the female gender is secondary, while at the bottom, ang pinaka nasa baba at pinaka naiiwan, ang LGBTQIA+. This only tells that straight people are rewarded and are the privileged sexuality, since the straight gender is deemed as the default, and since it's a default gender, it's natural, essential, and God-given. Some people even use religion to condemn the others, which is really hypocritical. Those who are not straight are deviant and must be punished. Balik tayo. Bakit paparusahan? Because they don't fit into the order that patriarchy wants. Para sa patriarcha, wala silang silbi kasi hindi sila papasok doon sa mga roles na idinikta na nito. Queer theory addresses the gaps of feminism and masculism because not being straight oppresses people and places them at a disadvantage in the society. So sino ang kaaway? Patriarcha. Again, ang kaaway ay ang patriarcha. Why do we put people down or limit their well-being just because they don't adhere to heteronormativity? Bakit? The answer to that question is this: there is no valid answer. Walang sagot na makakapagtama sa ginagawang ito. Queer theory aims to improve this belief and scale as the theory argues that being manly, and being feminine are not opposite poles in an oversimplified, regressive, and limiting scale. So mali ito, kailangan ng improvement. So what does it propose? Genderbread person. Ayan. So thus we have the genderbread person where there are 4 areas to visit in understanding the person. These are identity, ayan, nasa utak, which refers to how you identify yourself, kung paano ka na-classify yung sarili mo. Next is attraction, ayan, the heart one, which refers to what gender you are sexually, ayan, or romantically attracted to. Next one is sex, ayan, so the sex organ. Sex refers to your biological structure and reproductive organs. And lastly, expression, which refers to how you behave and present yourself. Ayan. So genderbread person can justify why it is okay that a straight man wears makeup. It can also justify why a woman's bushy armpit, may buhok yung kalikili, is okay. It can also justify that gays don't always have to dress like girls. Likewise, it can also justify why there are lesbians who dress like princesses. Class, this is diversity, and thus we have the flag of LGBTQIA+. Actually, mas mahaba pa siya, but I cannot pronounce that na. Okay? So just like feminism and masculism, queer theory is pro-inclusivity. Sinasama niya lahat. Ayan. To further our discussion, let's have this common expression sa Pilipinas. Umamin ka na kasi, yan. Umamin ka na kasi is invasive and invalid. Remember, one's gender is nobody's business. Huwag kang pakialam. Kaya naman, balik tayo sa tanong natin. Whether he is gay or straight, he is still Alexander the Great. Siya pa rin naman yan. But his gender is not our business. When applying this lens, here are the things you must look for and assess in the text: gender fluidity, equality, homophobia, and culture. And then there are other things which you can visit. As an application of this lens, let's focus on Serena by Glock 9. Ayan. The poem or the song uses first-person point of view, which means that the speaker or the persona is sharing us a view of his or her world through his or her eyes. The persona narrated his discovery and exploration of his sexuality or her sexuality. The persona also expressed and exposed maltreatment towards him or her for being gay. He or she was physically and mentally abused by those who could not accept him or her for who he or she was. The figure he was so attached with in this narrative poem was his father, who was disappointed of the fact that his son was gay. This is true to what queer theory is saying. Those who are not straight get punished, and being straight is being privileged. Kaya naman sabi nga, queer theory addresses the gaps of feminism and masculism. Okay? Keep into mind that gender studies are telling us one thing. May sinasabi siyang iisang bagay. We are not just our sex. We are way more than that, and we must not allow patriarchy to continue poisoning us because we can all fall victims. To sum up, we learn that feminism checks how women are portrayed in a text. Masculism points out that men can also be oppressed, and this can be found in the text. Queer theory tells us that gender is fluid, and that heteronormativity causes oppression to those who are not straight. When applying any of these theories, find a link between gender and the text to make sense of the literary piece. That is all for this session. Stay safe and healthy and have a great day. See you in the next one. Goodbye.